It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Yes, everyone, welcome back once again to 41 is the Mic. I am Matt Derrick with Chiefs Digest alongside the day that the pads come on enthusiast Nick Jacobs, which cannot come soon enough.
Yes. Cannot, Matt. Cannot. It'll make Q&As a lot easier.
I knew I could make you laugh with that one.
Nailed it. Shows a lot of personality, right?
It shows a ton of personality. Hey, just curious, today we heard from 6 different coaches today, Nick. Mm-hmm. Did you hear anything interesting today?
Oh, Matt, there was one that struck a chord with me. Comes from Chiefs tight ends coach Tom Melvin, that's been with Andy pretty much his entire career. From their college days at some points, even all the way up to their time in Philly together in Kansas City. And I mean, he said something we're going to play right now that I was like, Matt, I feel like I've been seen.
I know it's early, but just how do you see the rotation with Wiley and Kelce and Gray and Irv?
We got no clue. You can't until they put pads on. I mean, guys look different with shorts until they go.
See, Matt, look, even Tom Melvin says it. Even Tom Melvin says the same thing. And that guy's been coaching the league 26 years. So if Tom Melvin isn't sure, how do you expect me and you to be sure?
That is true. I mean, we're probably better focusing on what's happened than what's going to happen. Because, yeah, I mean, I've seen it happen way too many times. I mean, I don't want to throw people under the bus, Nick, but there have been quite a few times that we have seen players who looked like they were going to be major contributors for this team, and then what happened? The pads came on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we never heard from them again.
We saw them out there still like, oh yeah, there they are. But yeah, no, once pads come on, things skill sets turn a little bit different, and the grind of being out there on the field day in, day out, taking hits, getting bruises, all that type of stuff. Those can add up for some people.
They absolutely can, but we can focus on what's going on right now, Nick, and what we see right now.
Yeah.
And obviously today was the 6th OTA practice for the Chiefs. It's the second one that we've gotten to see. So the coaches have gotten to know these players a little bit more than we have and see a few things. But a few changes as far as the personnel. Hollywood Brown was not at practice today. We did not see Chris Jones, although he had been at practice earlier this week. Travis Kelce, who wasn't there for the OTA open to the media last week, was there today. So a few changes there. Isaiah Buggs, who obviously has some off-the-field issues right now that he's dealing with, was not there. I know I'm probably missing somebody else. I mean, Charles Omenihu and Derek Nottie, both rehabbing. They came out to the field to watch the second half of practice. Joe Tooney is not out there. And obviously the big one, Xavier Worthy, continuing to watch practice from the sideline while he's dealing with that tweaked hamstring. And that's one that maybe we start with because he was an interesting story today, Nick, and that he did something I don't normally see with guys who are, going through that mental rep process. I mean, we sometimes have seen it like, we've seen players, on defense, standing, behind the defense and watching things. And, and Steve Spagnuolo will come over and talk to him for a little bit. Xavier Worthy was like attached to the hip to Matt Nagy the entire time that the Chiefs were going through team drills and 7-on-7.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed as well, is just how he's in his hip pocket in a good way. So he's getting to hear, Nagy do I believe the call in on the helmet and everything, and then kind of getting to see it, observe it, and kind of get to watch it. And kind of, if he had questions, he's learning from the OC about it. And what I love about it is, like you and I were talking about last week, he's getting the vantage point of Hollywood Brown and his, and the wide receivers. This week, he's getting the vantage point from the offensive coordinators. And then, so he's still getting to learn the offense, even though he may not physically be out there being able to, run the route or, something of that nature. But I'm saying for him to get all these different vantage points that I kind of talk about over time, like, if he gets it from Andy or if he gets it from Patrick Mahomes standing by him, next week in OTAs or during mandatory minicamp, like I'm going to be ecstatic about that, because that guy isn't just trying to, learn from one specific person. He wants to learn from everybody in the league. And when you do that, you get a little piece of the puzzle from everybody that can help make you a better complete player.
Man, and we heard that from Patrick last week when he was talking about, Worthy's continuing to ask questions. He's asking good questions, smart questions. I mean, we didn't get to hear the conversation, but, you can bet on that's what he's picking the brain of Matt Nagy for. And Nagy also explained a little bit, saying, hey, he was also walking through and talking about, watching the play as it developed and what he would be doing on the play against the coverage that they were facing. So, do that exercise with the offensive coordinator. I mean, to me, one, it is good experience that even if you're not playing right now, you're getting good experience, you're getting some good knowledge. But two, it shows me a work ethic that's also something that Worthy came to this team with a reputation for, that he's got a good work ethic, because not every guy would be doing that. We've seen it before. I mean, it hasn't always been a situation where a guy would do that. Right. And I mean, it also speaks volumes too about Matt Nagy, that he's a good teacher. I mean, we are talking about a guy that went to the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky. I mean, he doesn't do that unless he's a good teacher. So I thought that was remarkable. I mean, it was really extraordinary to see that, because it's something that we don't normally get to see, and it's unusual. But I think it's because you got an unusual player. I mean, I don't think Xavier Worthy, I mean, based on what he's shown us so far, I don't think he's just a run-of-the-mill guy. I mean, the Chiefs drafted him because they thought that he was this guy, and so far they're getting rewarded.
Yes, and I mean, I know people may be bummed that he's not out there in the field for you to be able to see video of him cutting and breaking and doing all that type of stuff and everything. But I'm telling you right now, like, he's doing everything that he can mentally to be prepared by the time training camp comes around. So like that's what I'm impressed about more than anything else. I mean, and they're going to be cautious with the hamstring. Like, I'm not knocking him on that one bit, because you want him for the season. You want him for a postseason run. You don't need him to be perfect for OTAs and, mandatory minicamp.
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. Let's go forward. Let's just kind of go through with our observations about what we saw today. I'll let you lead us off, Nick. Which side of the ball you want to go to? You want to go offense, defense?
Offense, Matt. Offense.
Go offense. All right. What's your biggest takeaway? What did you see today that struck you the most?
Here's the benefit that you and I kind of talked about in the Q&A earlier this week is since we're only going to one a week, we get to see the jumps. So it doesn't become, mundane. You just see a little intricacy, here's 10% better, 10% better. You and I get to see, like, when somebody either puts good weeks together or, can have those moments. And right now, I mean, he's the star of the team, obviously, and you expect it. But Matt, I'm gonna tell you, like, Mahomes right now already looks in regular season form. Like, he's not missing on passes, even when he's throwing deep balls, and he's putting them in spots where they're supposed to be, and where it's safe from coverage, and like just some of those that he's putting on a dime whenever him and the receiver are on the same page and everything. Like the one he threw, I don't believe we can get into total specifics on it, but the one he threw to Remigio, like, that was a laser. That was a laser touchdown he threw from more than 40 yards away. And it was spot on. They clicked timing wise, and like, he caught that pass and everything. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I was like, outstanding work there, sir. Just where he placed that ball and hit him in stride. And again, I'm telling you, this is 40 plus yards downfield. Like, it's not red zone work. Like, this was from a distance. I was just really impressed with that throw. But Patrick had a lot of good throws. He had a lot of good awareness and everything. And the guy who really took the jump, in my opinion, at the quarterback spot was Carson Wentz this week. He looked a lot more comfortable this week, where he's placing the ball. You can tell he's starting to get in rhythm with these guys. He's getting used to these guys, and he was able to place the ball right in front of him in stride a lot of the time. He's got the reads down a lot better this week, because there was a wide open touchdown in red zone work. He spotted it immediately, boom, threw it, and it was there. They weren't on necessarily the same page, but had they been, that would have been just a wide open touchdown. He saw that void immediately, and it was So Carson Wentz from week 1 to week 2, like, you see that veteran in him and just how he went about it. I was impressed with him. I got some other guys, but I want to give the floor to you, Matt, for some of your initial impressions on offense.
I wish I had marked it down. Did you see the no-look throw that Mahomes had? For some reason, I did not mark it down when it happened, and so I can't remember now who he threw it to.
Was it the red zone work?
It was
one?
in the red zone, yes.
Yeah.
And it was to the left sideline that he ended up throwing it, and he was looking towards us at the time.
But was it to the middle or was it to the flats? Because I know one
of to the flat.
Okay, so that was I'm trying
to remember.
Don't want to get hardcore in depth about it, but I know exactly what you're talking about, and it was designed. It was a design when they're working on. Was it with the one where Pacheco started voicing his opinion?
It could have been. Isaiah had some thoughts today.
And we can't necessarily get into it. Just know he's full of energy.
All we're going to say. Yeah.
He's happy to be on the football field, and he brought energy because of it.
It could have been a couple of plays before that, because I know that one was the red zone touchdown to Rasheed. And so it may have been a little bit before that, but I'm totally digressing here. But Patrick was basically looking at us. I mean, I felt like I'd locked eyes with him, and there was a receiver in front of us. And I want to say I thought it was Rasheed. I could be wrong, but he had a receiver in the end zone that was just in front of us. And I mean, Patrick's looking at it. I mean, absolutely looking at him, and just does the no look across his body to the receiver in the flat. And I mean, it was just like, yeah, that was mid-season Mahomes. And he obviously had a deep pass that they didn't connect on, that there was a blitz. He's backpedaling. And while backpedaling, chucked it 50-odd yards downfield with like a 6.50 hang time to give his receiver an opportunity to try and go get the ball. I won't throw the receiver under the bus who didn't go get the ball. It was the tough throw. I was thinking to myself that I thought Hollywood probably makes the catch, but
yes,
there we go.
If it were Hollywood or Xavier, I think they made the catch, and if it was Tyreek, definitely makes the catch. Yes.
Tyreek definitely makes the catch. Yeah. But that's Mahomes. I mean, his decision making, and you can tell it's crisp. His command of everything right now is crisp. I mean, right now this guy is locked on. I mean, yeah, this is barring any injuries, anything like that. Knock on wood if you want to. I'm not trying to curse him. But I can't agree with you more. I mean, he absolutely is, and I'll co-sign the Carson Wentz looking very, very comfortable too. Talking about players making the leap, though, I mean, I'm trying to think of anybody I saw make a bigger leap than Nico Remigio. As far as the pass catchers goes, Nico Remigio.
Oh,
Nico Remigio. I mean, he was outstanding today. I mean, he had a good week last week too, but because Hollywood's not there, because Xavier's not practicing, hey, everybody moves up a couple of spots. So you are starting to see some receivers maybe getting reps that they wouldn't ordinarily get. But, when Nico's getting his opportunities with Mahomes and taking advantage of them, that's a big deal. And I mean, it's out there enough as far as, being able to talk about, hey, he's catching passes from Patrick Mahomes. We can say that, Nick. That's a big development as growth. I mean, and Matt Nick even talked about it on Thursday as well, just, how much different of a player he is compared to where he was last year as a rookie. And, he says that that's easy to root for. And I mean, it is. I mean, Remigio, I can see the work that he's put in, because you can see the work in his body. I mean, he's thicker than he was a year ago, especially his base. I mean, he definitely looks stronger. I think he looks faster. He definitely looks quicker than he did a year ago. And right now he's catching everything inside. I mean, I'm not saying Nico Remigio is going to make this roster. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 4 receiver on this team, but I'm just telling you right now, I mean, the guy who has made his case the best for me to be a pass catcher on this team is him.
Yeah, no, he's taking advantage of every rep and every opportunity he gets, no matter who the quarterback is, because he's got passes from all 3 of the quarterbacks at this point. And he's been there every time, been reliable, been able to catch it, knows where the void's at, able to adjust accordingly if he needs to on it. I mean, like, obviously when the pads come on and staying healthy are going to be keys for him, but like, yes, like Remigio is putting it all together to where you're not like, I see his reps increasing with above where people probably think they would expect ahead of training camp personally.
Yeah, I mean, and that's promising to me. I mean, we'll see. And once again, it's when the pads come on. So that's why I'm not predicting anything. I'm just telling you at this point, guy who's impressed me the most has been him. I think we also need to talk about the left tackle spot because that one was a big topic of conversation with Matt Nagy, with Andy Heck on Thursday, since they were available for us. And, and I mean, Andy Heck made it pretty clear that left tackle spot is a wide open competition. Says that, hey, Kingsley Suamataia and Wanya Morris right now have the leg up, but they're by no means the only two guys in the conversation. And we saw that on Thursday because, as Heck acknowledged, I mean, True Godric been having a good offseason workout, a good OTA period. They let him play with the ones on Thursday. He was ahead of those guys. So I'm not sure what that means, Nick. I don't know if there's a whole lot we can draw from it, but it's interesting.
Here's what I'll say from an O-line perspective. Obviously people know they rotate a lot of guys into a lot of different spots, make them uncomfortable, see how they react to it, put on tape what they're capable of, just like they did in that Chargers game in the final week of the season. For people that potentially get a chance to watch, they rotate the guys in everywhere and get them working spots so they can kind of see, okay, how does their kick step do here? Is their punch better when they're at this position or this position? When they have help inside and outside, how do they kind of respond to that? How do they turn their shoulders? Do they turn it a little bit more to the sidelines when they're in this position or that position? And they get a chance to put it on tape and evaluate it before they throw the pads on in July. And so the opportunity to see all that, I'm glad the Chiefs do that on a regular basis, because I want to see each one of those guys, especially when the pads come on, get chances at multiple spots, because not only are you trying to figure out your offensive line for this upcoming fall, you're also trying to see, hey, who do we need to potentially keep around down the road here? Who's worth developing at maybe other positions to invest that money in? So somebody like Godric, you've seen him at both tackles over the years when he's been here with the Chiefs. Like last year, I saw him at both tackle spots of a training camp. Can he be a swing tackle? Can he be this? Can he be that? How does he do when the pressure's on? When he's with certain team. And like just kind of get as many answers as possible from this. So like for the Chiefs, I wasn't surprised to see guys playing positions that hadn't necessarily been talked about before being situated the way that they were. It makes a lot of sense to be able to get as many questions answered before the pads come on as you can towards where you want to potentially place those guys and try to find all their natural positions, but also give them reps and experiences when there's not a ton of pressure on like a game situation, so that they feel comfortable and confident. Well, hey, I did that one, those 2 weeks in OTAs and minicamp, and I can do this without a problem. So I think it's a good way that they go about trying to build confidence among guys along the offensive line before they get into the real battles where they need to be on point.
And this is where, to me, also as a player, it's an opportunity for you to embrace an opportunity, because I can think of a couple of guys in Zach Fulton and Cam Irving. Zach Fulton, Chiefs felt comfortable putting him at 5 different spots. Cam Irving played 4 different spots. And both those guys got paid, and they also made good money because they embraced that versatility. If you embrace that, if Wanya Morris was to become a utility lineman that could play 4 spots for you, that's a win for the Chiefs. But honestly, it could be a big win for Wanya Morris, because that is valuable. That is something that can get you paid in this league if you can do that. So, yeah, having that flexibility, they love it. Obviously, the Chiefs appreciate the ability of the guys to be able to move around and play different spots. And it could mean that maybe that is your best role. If you're not born to be a starting left tackle, but you can be a guy that, hey, in a pinch can play in 4 different spots, or you start for a few games there to help keep the show running when somebody gets hurt, that's a valuable role, because you can't afford everything you want. So as a team trying to manage your salary cap, those guys can be pretty important cogs, and if they embrace it, right? Because we've also seen what happens when players don't embrace it,
right?
And that doesn't work,
right? Yeah. The final things I'll talk about offensively, and we can move on to defense here. From an offense perspective, watching running backs today, I still just every time I watch him, I just gravitate towards watching Bailey, the undrafted guy they got from TCU. Like he's got some underrated speed to him. I like the vision that he has, and I like how he catches out of the backfield. So I mean, like there's enough there. I'm really intrigued to see how he does in pass pro when the pads come on, and just kind of his running style at an NFL level, where that will be at, and how physical will he be running through the hole? What type of confidence will he have? So I'm intrigued on that point of it. And then finally, watching some guy named Travis Kelce today. Kelce looked fresh, man. Watching Kelce out there run some of the routes they did, they were they were smart about how they used them. They didn't, they weren't treating it like it was a game and he needed to have 70 reps and all that type of stuff. But like, you saw the route running ability and just how whenever they did have him out there for a lot of the snaps. And then it was funny because each time he would come out of what they were doing, whether it was, team or 7-on-7, all the tight ends gravitate towards him. And you just see them all just, that they're picking his brain and they're asking him questions, and like just watching him work, and like just kind of how I think each of them is appreciative. You even watch Irv Smith, kind of just the way he'll watch Kelce and just kind of the mannerisms and everything. Like each one of them, they just, I can tell how much they appreciate the opportunity to be able to learn from somebody of Kelce's caliber.
Yeah, and there seems to be the Chiefs understand and acknowledge that, hey, if this is voluntary, so Travis probably isn't going to be around for all 10 of these OTA practices. They're okay with that, because if there's a good mix there of where you get, one, enough practices with Travis there that those guys can learn from him, but then two, there's enough practices where Travis isn't there that then those guys get his reps and can apply what they're learning. Yep. So, I mean, I think the Chiefs are absolutely fine with that. I mean, and that's one thing, and there hasn't been the questions that usually there are. Obviously, hey, we only got Andy Reid on the first day. We didn't get him today. And so none of the other coaches are going to answer questions about who's there and not there. But, there's not a controversy with this team about guys who aren't there. No. There's none of that obsession with it. I mean, there might be some fans that are curious about why certain players aren't there. And I'm curious about a couple of guys, that we haven't seen at either one of these practices. And I would like to get those answers. But the players in this team and the coaches aren't concerned at all. I mean, that is the last thing on their mind is about some of the guys that aren't there. And I mean, it's an old adage that, hey, you coach the guys that are there. But that's particularly true in this case because, I mean, some of the guys that are gone, it means that other guys are getting the opportunities that they would normally be sucking up. So it's kind of a win-win to a degree for the Chiefs in some of these spots. Let's go over to the defensive side.
Yes, let's.
So I'm going to let you have the first serve.
Okay.
Defensively, what stood out to you today?
Tranquil, man, just flying all over the field yet again. Like that guy,
it doesn't. Energizer Bunny.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's 7-on-7. Doesn't matter if it's team. Doesn't matter if it's OTAs, mini camp, or playing in the Super Bowl. That guy just plays at the same level all the time. Just plays at the same intensity. And then I won't get into necessarily what happened, but when they were doing some work, Nick Bolton noticed something immediately on one of the routes, and he communicated immediately with I want to say it's McDuffie at the time, but I mean had that recognition immediately, and they both discussed it and went over it and had that like that. Two of the leaders on the team like that doing that together, and guys around getting to see that and observe that and hear that on the sidelines. That was another key thing that I'm like, see, I was like, just. It's one of those things like the way I'm going to phrase this, and I hope it makes sense, is like you lose somebody like L'Jarius Sneed, or you lose somebody on offense, you lose somebody that you consider a leader. It's just another guy steps up. Another guy that was right behind takes that mantle or takes that step, and just imagine it just like, it's on whether it's a wrestling tournament and they step up on those things to where like, this is the number one top, this is 2, 3. And like just the next guy takes over for it. That's just something I just kind of stuck with me today, just kind of watching those guys and how they were how they're kind of the veterans, even though they're still young and haven't even, gotten out of their rookie contract yet, but just kind of how they went about that and handled themselves in those fronts. I just thought that was interesting. And then even that safety Dean we were talking about last week had the interception today. And I mean, hey, it was there and everything, and it was easy pickings, but he still came up with it. He didn't drop the ball, so I want to make sure he gets recognition on that part. Oh, and for somebody else, Justin Ross did have a catch today. He did, yes, he did have a catch. So I want to make sure he's mentioned.
That was the contribution to practice today. He made a catch and has been mentioned. Trey Dean, you're right. I keep having conversations that I get to the very end, and usually Trey Dean's like my last point that I either get to make or I forget to make. That's it's kind of. I mean, hey, let's face it. I mean, he's one of the guys at the bottom end of the roster that's competing for a spot. It's an uphill battle because the Chiefs have a loaded safety group. Hey, injuries can happen, but talk about a guy who's, is playing his butt off. And hey, we sometimes have, remarked about the fact that sometimes there can be a problem when the guy's going 110% and maybe the veterans are going 80%. There can be a little, and hey, it's non-contact, Trey, so you don't have to be, making contact during a non-contact practice. But I do like the fire. I like that. I mean, I think they need it. And certainly, hey, on a practice on a day like this where it's May 30th and it's kind of hot and steamy, getting a little cranky. I mean, let it go. Isaiah Pacheco, like we alluded earlier, was just absolutely on fire today with the trash talk. Can't repeat any of the words for two reasons. One, anything that the players say on the field is off the record, so can't repeat that. And two, we run a clean show here, so we're G-rated. So
it was still entertaining, and I had to hide my laughs a couple times because it was funny.
Yeah, his trash talking, and honestly, I mean, even Spags, threw a little shade in his own press conference by saying that, hey, we can't touch anybody, we can't hit anybody. Quarterback's wearing a gold jersey for crying out loud. So I think Spags is looking for the pads to come on, and I hope Pacheco can cash the check that he's going to have to cash.
Because he made a deposit.
Let's just say when they do one-on-one drills and one-on-one blocking drills on the first day and pads and camp, I think there's going to be some guys jockeying for position on maybe taking on Pacheco in the backfield.
But either way, man, what I'll say in that regard is Pacheco has a passion for being on a football field. That dude loves being on a football field. The guy loves playing football. And that's a great thing to have in those type of practices.
Yeah, I think remember he wasn't on the football field last year at this time of year because he was recovering from, multiple surgeries. So having him back this year, I think it is a big deal because that energy is infectious. It obviously, I think, helps the rest of the team. I think it helps the rest of the running back group too, because, when you've got that guy that you're trying to match and you're trying to compete with, it raises your game as well. Mm-hmm. So that is a big point there. Funny you mentioned the Nick Bolton in particular on the linebackers with Drew Tranquil as well. I mean, this is going to be I don't know how to describe the Chiefs linebacker group. It's deep though. I mean, I don't know necessarily where I would say, but I will say this, because I told somebody this earlier today, Cam Jones could be a starting linebacker for some teams in the NFL. And he's probably the fifth or sixth linebacker on this team. And it doesn't mean that the Chiefs have the best linebacker crew in the NFL, but they got three very solid starters. And then they've got some backups that can play. I mean, Cam Jones, is someone that they're clearly prepping to be able to back up every position. Jack Cochran's a guy like that too. Curtis Jacobs, your namesake, has been looking pretty good too. I mean, he moves around pretty well.
Yeah, and like you said, Jack Cochran, he had a play today, man, where he wasn't treating it like it was OTAs there whenever he was trying to catch somebody in the flats near the boundary there. He wasn't playing around. I give him props on that one for having that level of intensity.
I mean, I give the Chiefs scouting department and Dave Merritt a ton of credit because they seem to be able to find corners and defensive backs at any position, at any spot. Mm-hmm. Day 1, day 2, day 3, undrafted, and they turn them into players because they're able to identify talent, and Dave Merritt coaches them up. Brendan Daly and the Chiefs scouting department probably deserves the same kind of recognition about linebackers too, because the Chiefs have not put a ton of resources into that position. I mean, yes, they drafted Nick Bolton second round, and I know, and Leo was obviously a day 2 pick, but you think about even acquiring Drew Tranquil was a flyer of a free agent signing when he first came here. I mean, it was a nothing contract that they got him on. And then you look at this Cochran, undrafted, Cam Jones, undrafted, Cole Christensen off waivers. I mean, they're able to identify talent. And Brendan Daly's done a really good job with that group of coaching them up.
Yeah. And for me, obviously, I can watch them do their drops and watch them in coverage and kind of watch them fly around and kind of if they recognize or how they would have blitzed in that spot if there had been that opportunity and everything. But obviously, at the end of the day, they're one of those people that, they don't get to fully execute everything that they want. Like when it's a passing camp, which is what OTAs and mini camp are for the most part, like there's just a certain, for example, Jaden Hicks. Hicks had some good plays today. Like Hicks looked overwhelmed at times, but then he had some good plays, some good deflections. Like he's going to be a physical football player out there whenever he finally can make contact. And he's just an imposing guy with his size on the football field. And I've talked with you about before, I'm curious to see if they use him as a spy down the road. Because the ability he has and his ability to react and his imposing size, I think is going to be really intimidating for a quarterback. Like to see a guy who has that athletic ability, that size, and if he puts some tape out there that shows an imposing will of being able to hit some people, I think he's going to make a lot of athletic quarterbacks, if he's the spy, think twice about moving outside of that pocket, especially somebody in week 1. So you show that on preseason, show some big hits in preseason. They're gonna be mindful of that after a couple series on a Thursday night opener.
You're thinking week 1. I think if I remember correctly, I'm thinking week 11 because he's big enough that Josh Allen's not going to scare him.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
If those two collide in the middle of the field, this isn't going to be one of those things where Josh Allen falls forward for a couple of yards or Josh Allen breaks a tackle. I don't think he's breaking a tackle from Jaden Hicks. I mean, that's E equals MC squared. I mean, that's going to be a hit. Those two meet on the football field.
Mm-hmm. That'll be that's going to be quite the collision. And then Kamal, his athletic ability just shines. Just where he's at in position when he's out there on the football field, and just how he can stay in hip pockets, and just because I think it was Merritt that brought up the comparison to Bashaud Breeland athletically today, and after hearing him, I was like, he's 100% right, because athletically he is a lot like Breeland. I was like, well, that was almost like that guy's coached defensive backs for quite a while and has a good Rolodex of it. And I was like, that's actually a really good comparison. And Kamal's he's not scared. He doesn't, he may be learning along the way and everything, just like Jaden's learning everything. But you see him excited every play for that challenge, to be getting better, to be pushing and everything. And just athletically, he's excited when during rookie camp, he was excited when he got the chance to go up against Worthy a handful of times. It's just like that's kind of stuck out. That stuck out to me. Just like he's a guy that always looks forward to that challenge. And I think with a coach like Dave Merritt and in Steve Spagnuolo's system, if he's able to put it all together, that's going to be really, really exciting to see what that guy may be able to become over the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and that cornerback room in particular is going to be an absolutely brutal decision coming down to rosters, because I never really understood anybody that was saying that the Chiefs need to go out and get another veteran corner, because I just see a ton of raw talent in that group, and there's no reason to block any of it with a veteran, because frankly, I don't think there's a veteran you could go out and sign right now that's any better than the talent they've got. And you see even like a Kelvin Joseph come in that, hey, he's been around the league for a while. Hey, his numbers, metrics haven't been great. But the question is, to me, is this: has he been in a defense that really fits what he does, because the Chiefs have shown that and they're a great example. And there's a few other defenses around the league that I also would say that are the same way. But Steve Spagnuolo in particular, and especially with Dave Merritt, is that you don't have to be the best cornerback in the league to thrive in this system. You just need to play the way that the Chiefs need you to play. You need to play the way Spags wants you to do. You need to have the length, sure. You need to have the size, absolutely. You need speed. I mean, you need some attributes. But if you know your role and your responsibility and you're able to do that and execute, I mean, you can play in this defense, and maybe you're not a great fit for another defense where maybe, they're more about freelancing and it's more one-on-one and not as much zone and all of that, and not as much matching up. I mean, that's possible because Kelvin Josephs looked like a really good player to the point where, okay, well, now you're like, okay, well, McDuffie, Williams, Watson, Nick Jones, Kelvin Joseph, Echo Boydo. I mean, I could name off 7 guys that legitimately, Kamal Hayden, I hadn't mentioned. I mean, he's going to be in that group. I mean, they're going to have a really tough decision when it comes down to figuring out who's going to be on this roster. And for another reason, that they probably have 4 or 5 safeties that they really like too.
Mm-hmm.
So, offense and defense we've talked about, but I'm saving the best for last, Nick, because I'm telling you, the best play in most games that you watch this year might be all the kickoffs, because this play is going to be nuts this year. And there's a couple of things that sometimes Dave Tope throws out numbers that you can fact check them. They might not always come out perfectly right, but, I'm going to throw out a couple of things that he said today, because one was he was talking about watching the XFL, and that he would say between 25 to 40% of the time in the XFL, kickers were involved in making plays on the tackle. And that's one of the reasons why, they're talking about maybe having a Justin Reed, or, as was discussed even today, and we got to see, a Louis Rees-Zammit kicking off, because you get an 11th tackler, you get somebody out there who actually can and should hit people, and it's better than having Harrison Butker try and making a tackle. And then he also threw out a number, I'm trying to remember the exact ones. I think he said that there were 1,800 touchbacks last year in the NFL.
Yeah.
And they think that, there might be, 1,200 less this year? I think that they might only have 400 touchbacks this year. They might have 12 or 1,300 returns. I mean, this is going to be an action play. There is no doubt about it. And we're starting to see it, Nick.
Like, you and I have got to see, 4 or 5 practices now when you include rookie camp and everything?
Yeah, 5 with the rookie minicamp. Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, the kick return, the kickoff/kick return, there's so much strategy that's going to go into it that hasn't gone into it before. That's going to make it really intriguing and exciting if you're a football nut, basically, because it's just another layer of potentially turning a game around. Just like the Chiefs when they played the Houston Texans in that playoff game and popped out the football and were able to kind of help them turn on and crank it up for that first Super Bowl. I'm telling you, that's what a lot of not necessarily the fumble aspect, but that jolt that they gave, there's a possibility, depending on the special teams coordinators, like we've talked about week after week, the ones who get it blocked right and the ones who put the right returners back there, boy, are they going to have some fun. Boy, are they going to have some opportunities there. And it could snowball quickly there in the first half of the season. And like the way Dave said it is something you and I talked about. I was like, Andy Reid's always going to give Dave Tobe the time he needs to practice at a training camp and at mini camp and at OTAs, to where the Chiefs should arguably likely be one of the top 5 teams in the league when it comes to kickoff and kick return. And then I thought it was interesting when he talked about the touchback thing. He said strategy-wise that's probably going to be more, when they don't want to give momentum or take the chance to give momentum and they're up in a game and that type of stuff. But just the fact that they're already thinking about all those, here's the best way I can say this. The reason the Chiefs have been in 6 AFC conference championships and won a handful of them and won the 3 Super Bowls they have is because already this type of the year, Dave Merritt, not only Dave Merritt, but Dave Tobe and all these coaches, they're already thinking of those situations that are 6 months away right now. that are 7 months away right now. Steve Spagnuolo, some of the stuff he's coaching those guys on right now, they're not even going to deal with until maybe December, January. And like they are all coaching them as if it's the week of the game in some regard, in a greatest way possible. And for Dave Toub to be doing what he's doing out there in the field and going over all the situations that he does and throwing out the kickers that he did. And for the record, for people wondering, Reece Zammit is a good kicker. He kicked that. He had this. He was just as good as Justin Reed out there today.
And they looked identical kicking the football.
I know. So it's just like, I'm just telling you, like, and the fact Toub is going through all those, well, he's got time to do it right now. And he's getting, and like he said, obviously, he even mentioned it too, since they can't, have the collision right now and have the shoulder pads on and have the hitting and blocking. You don't definitively know everything at this point. But I'm just telling you, man, I'm so intrigued by that play this year and what it could become for the NFL, and the jolt it can for a while. Do I think it's going to be able to stay that way forever? No, because every coach is going to catch up at some point, and everybody's going to be on the same even playing field. But them working on what they are right now, and some stuff we may not be able to go into detail about.
Maybe a few things we haven't even seen yet. So
right, I think there's a lot we haven't seen yet, but they've thought about strategy wise. So I'm just telling you, like there's a lot of room to explore with that play and how dynamic it can be both as kickoff and kick return.
There's a couple of things that Dave Toub also said today that kind of confirm things that we've discussed and have kind of seen. But one is that, we talked about the fact, hey, hang time is irrelevant. I mean, being able to put the ball in the air does not matter, because the ball, you can move as soon as either one of two things happens. Either the receiver catches the ball or the ball lands in the landing zone. And that's the thing, is that, Toub said today, they want the ball on the ground. That's their goal. Is they don't want to kick it to a returner. I mean, they prefer not to. They prefer to get the ball on the ground. And because that's obviously when you can cover. And run. So if you're able to put the football on the ground, your kicker's able to do that with a line drive kind of kick. You're not going to see traditional kicks anymore. I mean, unless it's Harrison Butker trying to bang it through the back of the end zone for a touchback. And let's talk about, you mentioned that. I mean, that Dave Toub and Andy Reid and Mike Frazier and the advanced analytics, that they already have a chart of, okay, here's time on the clock. Here's score. Here's the situation. This is when we're going to be kicking it out of the end zone. They already have that kind of thing in process. I mean, they already know those situations. And we both know there's some teams around the league that probably aren't even going to think about that until September 4th. Right. So that kind of, is like, you can tell the Chiefs, and having Dave Toub is a big part of this, because he is a mad scientist on special teams. And they're going to try a lot of things. Some of them might not work, but this is going to be an action play. There's going to be a lot of scoring on kickoffs. I think the returns are going to be ridiculous this year. I think, like you said, teams are going to figure it out. They'll counter each other, come up with solutions. So in the long term, I think this is going to become an action play that's still exciting, but it might not be as crazy as it might be during the first half of the season. There's going to be some teams, you're going to lose some games on special teams. You're going to win some games on special teams this year. It's going to happen.
The one intriguing part that I've got the biggest question on, that I'm intrigued by, is how many turnovers can they force? Can they get the ball back possession-wise? And not only get the ball back possession-wise, but get Mahomes in that offense inside the opponent's 30 that quickly.
Yeah. And because that's what Dave Toub wants to do. Dave Toub wants turnovers. He would love to do that. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. If you're able to put that ball on the ground in the landing zone, who knows what's going to happen? It turns into a rugby scrum, and maybe that's why you have a little Reece Zammit. That's another thing. I've got too many of these things. I could talk about what Dave Toub had to say about kickoffs today for another 3 hours, but also intriguing that he talked about that you probably need more running back skills now to return kicks under this rule than maybe receiver skills. And we're seeing that. They're obviously using running backs a little bit more, maybe bigger players. But he singled out Luis Rees-Zammit that they're giving starter looks to as a kick returner right now because they want to see what he can do. I mean, obviously it's a big opportunity for him, but his skill set and his size could be ideal for that.
Going to be very interesting.
Well, it's definitely going to be intriguing, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, if you're going to training camp, do not go up to get snacks or go to the bathroom when special teams are on the field, because they're going to be working on this as much as they possibly can. I mean, every practice they're going to be doing a kickoff drill, which isn't always true. I mean, because some days in practice it used to be, kickoffs one day, punt team the next day, and rotated. Way Dave told me to sound, and what we have seen so far is that even on days where it's punt day, they're going to be working on kickoffs. So watch these because they're going to be hilarious, and they're going to be action packed. So
nope, that and the holder spot, those are going to be the two interesting things to watch every day up at Chiefs training camp, and for you and I and OTAs next week and mini camp the following week.
Yeah, Dave Tobe can confirm also what we've been telling you, for the last couple of weeks, that punting job is absolutely wide open. It's not Matt Arises is not just been anointed as the replacement for Tommy Townsend. Ryan Reckow from BYU is absolutely in the mix. Those guys seem, I mean, I know Ariza has a leg just out of this world, but Reckow's got a leg too. I mean, his placement is just as good as Ariza. I mean, I can't, other than the fact that one of them is right-footed and the other one's left-footed, I usually can't tell the difference when one of them is kicking. I mean, and I've seen punting competitions before, and I haven't said that. I mean, where it's usually been like there's one that's better than the other. This is a case where these two guys are neck and neck. I mean, that running back, left tackle, I mean, those are probably your three biggest wide open competitions for this team.
I would agree, Matt.
Any parting thoughts? Any final thoughts on your mind, Nick?
No, we're pretty over time-wise from what we need to be.
I blame myself for that. Next week is the final week of the Chiefs OTA workouts. I think the last day is going to be on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, Nick. Yep. So they've got 4 practices next week. Thursday is the last day. Will be the one that's open to the media. So we will be back then to once again break it down for you on 41 is the mic. Sometime after that, when Nick and I can work out our schedules. Tuesday, we'll see you for the live Q&A. If you've got questions, you can bring them then. Bring smart questions, because the better the question, the better answer you get from Nick. So I'm going to be a little harder on you guys next week. I want some better questions. Not that you haven't had good questions, but think outside the box. Think about what you want. Think about what you want to ask. So,
especially when it's O-line, D-line, or linebacker that involves shoulder pads.
Yeah, don't ask anything that involves hitting, because we're not going to know anything about that until late July.
Tom Melvin should have told you when you entered.
Tom Melvin has given you instructions. So
Tom Melvin should have Tom Melvin should have told you when you entered.
The moose out front should have told you.
There, you got it. I'm proud of you.
And we have our next T-shirt. So
a lot of merch, man. A lot of merch.
Got a lot of merch to work on. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next week.
Until next time, I bid you adieu.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.